Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, a portal edition at a premier spot for Red Raider football. Kenny Perry is sprinkling tea leaves to decipher, and we brace for the worst on a basketball injury front. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every blessed day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks for making us your first listen. In today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. That's daily fantasy sports made easy. Believe it, with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to see you again. And we got a bunch to dive into once again. My challenge continues. How many different ways can I alliterate with the word portal every day? We'll take another stab at it later on. We've also got some thoughts on Tahj Brooks and his immediate future from his position coach, Kenny Perry. We'll take a listen to. And it is always great to be back with you, but not going to be so great the way we have to kick off our conversation here today, unfortunately, with bad news that comes down the pipe yesterday. We speculated a little bit, just mostly in a hopeful way, hoping against hope kind of way, about the injury status of Red Raider basketball player Devin Cambridge. And then the worst reality comes to pass, learning that he will be done for the season. And obviously a big, big blow for a team, Chris, that was hoping against hope that they could expand a rotation. We've talked about that a lot. We got to get deeper on the bench, etc. Well, that challenge has become compounded now as you lose a guy that's been an impact player for you, a guy that's worn a couple of different hats when he's on the floor for you, and I think one of your most explosive players that you had going this season. So hate to hear it, hate it for him, obviously, personally, and hate it for Texas Tech basketball and the challenge that now gets even bigger moving forward.
Yeah, injuries suck, man. This is I hate this for Devin. It is certainly a devastating blow to your efforts as a team, and yet nobody will feel sorry for you. You know, you mentioned it, Calvin. I think that's the problem, is that some teams can withstand an injury bug of sorts, maybe at a certain position or a certain time of the year. You were a team that was already, thin as it was on experience, on guys that Coach McCaslin would trust, and you were already trying to find more of that. Now you're right; it's even more of an issue, and I don't know exactly where that comes from. And Grant is they're going to have to kind of change their team really immediately. And because Devin was, older guys win in college basketball these days. There's a reason the Big 12 has been so successful over the last several years. One, the coaching is elite, but two, it's like everybody kind of saw what everybody else was doing, and now it's just like the standard. Everybody's old in this league. The Big 12, you kind of look at what the SEC is doing in a football standpoint from the portal and all those things. This is what the Big 12 is doing, and like everybody is all in on the portal. You've got fourth and fifth year guys. I say all that to suggest, you were really leaning on a select few of, like Joe and Warren and Devin were kind of those are your seniors, those are your oldest guys, those are your experienced guys. But Cambridge was what he really gave you, Cowan, was versatility. He a starter. He was a guy that when you went small, he kind of played the 4 or the 5. He could handle the ball. He could finish on a break. He was really good defender. I think he really helped you, because you're talking about, he averaged about 10 and 5, but I think we would all agree he did so much more than that. And I think what the really frustrating part from just a purely basketball standpoint is he was really starting to play well. I mean, it wasn't as good in the first, 3 or 4 games, but man, he had really started, and you just wondered, this thing's about to blossom specifically for him. Man, because I mean, now you got to change your starting lineup. Now, can you go small like you want to? Do you just go guard heavy and say screw it, and we're gonna play fast, and this is our only chance, or is it really time to look at the Robert Jennings and the Kyron Lindsays and EY and say we just we got to grow some of you guys up and do it quickly, which is in some ways going to be unrealistic, but that doesn't stop the process based on what you're expecting them to do. So I don't know, man. I was just hopeful that this was like a 2 to 4 week deal. Maybe it's a strain, maybe it's a sprain, something along those lines. But unfortunately, I think they got the worst news, and lost for the year. And he can medically redshirt. Whether that is something he would want to do and come back here, I don't know. But I don't think he's played enough games. You got to play him 30% of your team's games for or more than 30%, and then at that point your year is done. But he has not qualified for that, or anything. So whether that's something he would want to pursue and be back next year, I mean, I would be all for it, but he may have other ideas. Just so we're clear there. But man, Cowan, it's just no other way around it. It's a blow to your team for sure.
Yeah, I would love to have him back in red and black. I only felt like we were kind of seeing the tip of the iceberg and what he could be, and he's already been pretty good for Tech. Is the 30% thing, is that only in a medical context? While we're on that page, I was curious about Kyron Lindsay as well. How does that work compared to, say, what we're used to in football or some other circumstances?
So it's a great question. It's so fascinating to me that in football, you get the 4 games, and it can be theoretically you could play in as many as, depending on what team you're on, you could play in as many as, I guess that would be 7 games, and still redshirt, because bottom line is you get 4 regular seasons, to play regular season games.
Yeah.
And then any postseason. So if you're on, Washington or Bama or Michigan, you can play in your conference title game. You can also play in the semifinal game and then the national championship game, and none of that is affected by your redshirt season. You still could have played 4 regular season. And so like football right now, like Jacob Rodriguez, good to go for the bowl game. Had you made it to Arlington and played the Big 12 title game, would have been good to go. So all hands on deck from a redshirt standpoint, from a football standpoint of the bowl game. For basketball, though, you step on the court for 1 second in a regular season game, and I think actually that even counts towards exhibitions. I think, especially
so it's like the opposite.
Yes. So Kyron Lindsay he's not redshirting. Yeah. Bottom line,
So the 30% is a medical deal.
That's a medical deal. Like from a medical standpoint, if you get injured, if you've played in less than 30% of your team's games, then you can still apply for and should be granted a medical redshirt. Get your year back. Because what is Texas Tech played right now? What are you, 6-2?
I think so.
So you played in 8 games. You're going to end up playing in about 29, 30, 31, 32 range. Depending on how many you play in the conference tournament and whatever postseason, all those things. But yeah, I mean it's so that would be available to him. Again, he may be like, dude, I'm gonna go pro, or I'm not gonna chance getting hurt again. And keep in mind too, with guys like this, you can get insurance policies. I think a lot of college athletes, like older ones that have a chance to play at the next level, not necessarily NBA even, but just overseas or whatever, there's insurance policies where they can be protected. I don't know if everybody in the Tech camp is in that mix, but I mean, it's pretty common to where you're protected if he were to come back next year and eliminate, something like this happening again, hurting him financially.
Man, wishing him the best individually as far as his recovery is concerned. Hope to see him back for another go round, but only time will tell. And certainly wishing Grant McCaskill the best in sorting this all out. And as you look for the next man up, it's more than just a cliche, folks. Okay, some speculation about the future and who's going to be back in a uniform or not. And we've got that very same thing going in a much different circumstance. This guy is far from a redshirt conversation in a football setting as it relates to a bowl game and maybe even another year for Tahj Brooks. First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Testing your skills on PrizePicks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports and the best way to spice up any game, anytime. And congrats to all those with the skills to win up to 25 times their money through the football year. And now you can do the same during the hoops calendar as well. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, place your entry, and boom, you're ready to roll. And with the NFL playoffs and bowl season coming up, you can also pick combo projections across football and basketball. With easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories, it's no surprise that PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So get in on the fun and go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy. In a football setting as it relates to a bowl game and maybe even another year for Tahj Brooks. Got to hear this week, Chris, from his position coach, Kenny Perry, and wanted to let you take a listen in to Coach Perry talking about Tahj. And I don't know about speculating necessarily, but giving us some updates on what's going down presently with the Red Raider ball carrier. Here's Kenny Perry.
From my conversation with Tahj is, Tahj, you got to take care of Tahj Brooks and his family. You've done a lot for Texas Tech, and when that decision comes, we're going to support them. I've said that from the get-go and the start of the year, and then the end of the year, same thing. Our conversations were, whatever you decide, we're behind you. Would I love to have him back? Hell yeah. But also, I want Tahj to, make that decision based on his career as well. I hope he comes back. But if not, the same thing is the punter situation. We got to go find somebody.
I think, Kenny was also asked about, hey, man, is Tahj out here practicing? And he kind of did a double take like, yeah, I mean, he's out here practicing and going to play in the bowl game. And I just think I think there's a really good chance that this young man is back playing for your team. And I will be the first to admit, I kind of did not think that was possible. I don't know, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, as we're kind of playing this out. We had these conversations even on our show, Cowan, about just the running back position in general at the next level. And the tread on the tires, thing, and there's only so much and all the dynamics that go into play. But I think there's an NIL conversation to have, because that's the one thing that I think there's a lot of collateral damage and a lot of negatives that I think we're seeing. The portal entries, just massive amounts being kind of one of them in a way, and the sport kind of turning into free agency. However, I think that what name, image, and likeness has done too, and I wish there was more examples of this, because there's not near as many as some of the negatives, but it potentially, allows guys like this to stay here. It's like Tony and Jalen last year, and Rashad and Malik and those guys, when they have an option, one, because they had some extra eligibility, which Tahj does as well. But it just makes sense if it makes sense, and it's not just a no-brainer. Like, okay, man, I'm out. Like, you've got some options to if you can figure out a company to, or companies or some sort of setup to where you can benefit and you can benefit them. I mean, you can stay in college for a bit longer instead of chancing it, rolling the dice on the NFL, which is always going to be there. But I think by Tahj, he's been very quiet. They have not brought in any running back visits. I think they are clearly letting him process this and ultimately decide on his time, which will, I believe, be after the bowl game publicly. But I think the fact that it's just a no-brainer that he's playing in this game really should tell you a lot. I think that's just me reading tea leaves, but I have a strong sneaking suspicion that somebody like Ollie Gordon and somebody like Tahj Brooks could be on the first and second team, all Big 12 team this coming July. Again, maybe I'm wrong. I bet I'm not, but we'll see. I just hope, selfishly, like Kenny said, hell yeah, man. Do I want him back? I just think the world of that kid and what he's about, and I think he's got a legit decision to make, but it maybe is not the decision that I thought he was going to make, I don't know, 6 weeks, 2 months ago. And there's different dynamics. I don't pretend to know everybody's situation or dynamic or what's in play here, but I just think that there's some tea leaves here that kind of point one way. But again, we'll see. It's his call. It's his family's call. He's got to do what's best for him, as Kenny said. But man, how much fun would that be?
Oh, good grief. Yeah. And what a bridge for the program, because without Tahj Brooks next year, the ball carrier position is frightening to me. For all the things I like about Valdez, the dude is not built like Tahj Brooks, and I don't really see him as a feature back or somebody like that, and I'd love to be proven wrong. So he's got that opportunity as well. And, by the way, shout out to those deep pockets taking my advice whenever we first had the Tahj Brooks conversation. I think I added it at the very end and may have even been chuckling as I said it, but I said, let's get busy, boys, with the NIL compensation. And I don't know if that's going to be the total difference, but it certainly sounds like it's going to make an impact. And yeah, when we were having that conversation the first time around, I really wasn't even conceiving of the possibility that maybe we'd have this come true. We don't have it just yet. We'll have to wait and see, but sounds like some signs are indicating Tech fans could get some good news. So looking forward to whenever that does become public, if that's the decision that he does make.
And
go ahead.
Well, and I will say this, for all the gnashing of teeth about receivers and whether this decision about Tahj and all that, it all still points to, up front, man, that is still not now. Think about it. It's even more, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but it's even more of a need if you were to consider him coming back. Yeah, you
didn't think it could be more important, but it kind of feels that way.
But in a way it could. Yeah. And so they have, I think that at last check, they had offered somewhere on the north side of 20 offensive linemen in the portal. I think that, there's a chance you take 4, maybe even 5 now.
Well, and he's the selling point also, isn't he? I think he would be for me if I'm talking to an offensive lineman. Hey, you want to block for a guy like this?
Well, because here's how you sell it. Hey, man, there's people that are going to watch your film, more people than wherever you were, or more people than in other places, because they're going to want to check, Brooks out if he's back, and I think Barron too. But I think that's the position that's just. It just is. It couldn't be more of a focus. And you can't. You'd love to say, hey, can all 20 of you guys show up, and then we can kind of almost like work with you over the next 9 months, and then pick the best 4 to 5 to stay. Boy, you wish it could work like that, because odds are, if you bring in 5 of them, odds are it's like whenever you sign them as high school kids, half of them work out, half of them don't.
I've already got this, dude. This sounds like another night school, and I know we can't do it with Bob Knight, but let's call it Hamby's house. He's probably got the room there. Host, well, these are some big boys, so maybe he needs an addition. I'm not sure, but yeah, that'd be nice. And perfect segue, by the way. Let's go ahead and get into our portal roundup conversation for today. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for, with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. Let's go ahead and get into our portal roundup conversation for today. Because you did host some offensive linemen, and before we get to an addition, someone who has decided to be a Red Raider, is there anything to read that you haven't had some of that pop just yet? Was it too immediate of an expectation that one would, as far as some of the visits you had, a week ago, some of those guys being on campus?
Well, you're talking about
like an O-lineman specifically, really.
Getting commitments and stuff? Yeah. So this is change. It changes by the hour. What you're dealing, like, it is insanity to me that this is the way that this is working right now. Because if you think about it, college coaches and college staffs, like on these very days, and really it's been this way for the last week plus, you are busy doing the following: recruiting your own kids to stay, exit meetings, having conversations, big picture, short-term, long-term, all that with your own kids, and dealing with all of their individual issues and situations. As those decisions pop off, then it's like we've got to identify immediately players to come in and replace them. We've got to, scout it. We've got to vet it. We've got to build relationships really quickly and try to recruit them enough in a very short time frame to get them in on a visit. Set these visits up, host them. Oh, by the way, you're getting ready for a bowl game and trying to keep your focus on Cal and figuring out who is playing for you, who is not playing for you. How are we switching everything up? Because, well, so-and-so is going to be in the portal, but he's not playing in the game, or, just all of those dynamics, and it affects all kinds of depth charts. And then from Texas Tech standpoint, plus you had a couple of coaches interviewing, for head jobs. Yeah. Plus, if you're Texas Tech, you are dealing with like moving. You don't even have really like a home base right now on where your main headquarters are. And it's like your team film room doesn't exist anymore. Like there's no team meeting room right now, really. You've had to makeshift some of these things and all this, so it as a creature of habit and a routine guy, it makes my head want to explode with too many irons in the fire at the same time. But your point is, there's the portal is changing by the hour, by the day. Our needs change. The players' interests may change. We liked these 4 or 5, but since then, 8 more have gotten in the portal, and we kind of like them better, and so we're going to kind of keep these guys. I mean, there's all kinds of like dynamics. So I just think it's taking a bit to process, because they'll host visitors. They're already hosting portal visitors since yesterday. This is Friday morning. They will host them through the weekend, really into next Tuesday. Then they will get on the plane for Shreveport. I mean, it's insanity. I mean, it's just too many things going on at the same time, but that's why things are changing so quickly. And maybe you haven't heard as much news as you would want, because it's very fluid. How about that?
Yeah, Susan Powder would be disgusted. Let's talk about an addition, and this at an interesting position. Unintentional rhyme master in the building this morning. You mentioned a couple of weeks ago, hey, quarterback is going to be a spot that will be impacted, and we have now seen that impacted. At least I think it'll play out to be a quarterback again, also here in the LBK. But his name is Cameron Brown from West Georgia, and I don't mean just geographically West Georgia. That's actually a school where they play organized football, I think. I'm kind of trying to figure out, is this purely a depth piece? Is this like a package kind of piece? Because we've seen some multi-QB packages, and of course, just regarding injury, we've seen plenty of quarterbacks getting snaps. But what do you think about this guy, and how do you see him fitting in for Texas Tech?
Speaking of rhyme masters, I always thought Dougie Fresh never got enough credit back in the day. Just saying. And I think
he's great in cool runnings.
And the Get Fresh crew. Yeah. So
wait, am I thinking about the right guy?
I don't know. Yeah.
No, Dougie Doug is who I'm thinking about.
Yeah. This was
didn't get enough
Doug,
shine
and
either.
then the letter E, Doug E. Fresh, and all that stuff.
My mistake. Apologies to the Fresh family.
that was an 80s guy. So Cameron Brown, West Georgia. This is we're talking 6'2", 6'3", 225. He was the freshman of the year in that league, and I like the measurables. This is a bit of a different look, and it was on purpose. This is what they were looking for. I've been asked a lot in the last day since this came out, or yesterday afternoon. Is he just Barron's backup? Is he just an addition? What all can he do? And really the kind of answer is like, just yes. I mean, he'll be in the mix. I mean, I think you come in and let him, compete for playing time, I mean, with Barron or with Jake Strong or with Will Hammond or whoever, I mean, and then let the chips fall. But this is a guy they wanted to, because one, he's walking on. Okay, so that's important to know. It doesn't take up a scholarship. It's a walk-on with the chance to try to go the Jordan Brown, Gino Garcia route and earn a scholarship in time. Obviously, we know with what the Matador Club does for these athletes, it's easier to get kids to walk on, with what, that they with community service opportunities and all the things that are made available to them that's widely reported. And so that helps facilitate an addition like this. But I mean, you're talking about somebody that threw for 1,000 yards. He ran for, I think, 500 to 600. He was a freshman. His completion percentage not great. His touchdown to interception ratio not perfect. But he's a dual threat. This is what he is. He's a hammer of sorts. And I think that, I mean, let's be honest. You missed a bit of Donovan Smith component this year. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Cameron Brown is not only a quarterback, but if he's also like what was the Pittsburgh Steelers? Didn't they call Kordell Stewart slash? Yeah, because it was like he was quarterback slash this that kind of. I mean, maybe you put him in along with Barron in red zone situations, maybe short yardage situations. You say, screw it. We're going to put this dude right there and we're just going to hammer it right at you and run like what would be like a wildcat or QB power. I don't know. I think a lot more is available to you. And you needed more depth. Yeah. You weren't going at it with just Barron, Jake, and Will next year. You weren't doing that. So this is – in addition to that, with a kid with some experience, some size, and freshman of the year in the league last year. Does this end the QB conversation portal-wise? I would say no. I think you still want a fifth one, like total. I don't know if it's as high profile as this one. I don't know if it's – because I'm telling you, I said this, junior college, D2, D3, even high school, it's got to be the right fit and size, and you have to get somebody that comes in that's realistic, that's like not looking to start, per se, or like wanting the promise of being start, because you've got some dudes now in your pipeline, but you also need some depth just to get through practices and workouts. But this was a big piece from the standpoint, because I think he potentially sees some time in a variety of ways, next year. All right, you heard it here first, folks. The next Kordell Stewart headed to Lubbock, Texas, America. That's a great way to finish this sucker, a cherry on top. Chris, hope you have a great weekend, man. Enjoyed it all week long. Thanks for the insight and the time as always. And we'll see you on the other side with, I'm sure, plenty to catch up on as we have a couple extra days to go without having a conversation. Who knows what we'll be talking about the next go-around. So everybody needs to make sure they're subscribed and right back here prompt and present for the next round. See you then, Chris. Yeah, head on the swivel. Keep it there. And appreciate everybody pay attention, listen, and like you said, Cowan, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. It helps, keeps this podcast going for Casey and I. We've enjoyed it. We will keep it going, and appreciate everybody listening. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next time. And there may be news on the horizon. We shall see. I would almost bank on there being news on the horizon. You may even hear from us before Monday. So again, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a thing. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.